The fog crept through the trees as Sarah made her way down the deserted path, each step enveloped in a silence so thick it felt oppressive. It was one of those nights where the moon shrouded itself in clouds, casting eerie shadows that twisted and danced in the fading twilight. Shadows that felt alive, whispering secrets of forgotten stories. 2 years ago, Sarah had been so certain about her future. She was a bright-eyed college student, debts from her federal student loans looming over her like a specter. Little did she know that the weight of those loans would grow heavier, entangling her in a web of anxiety and despair. She remembered her father's words, a mantra of financial wisdom. Debt is a shackle, a chain you carry until death. As an idealistic 18-year-old, she'd brushed his advice aside, eager to embrace the world. One fateful evening, after receiving her diploma, the reality hit. Payments were due, and the oppressive weight of her loans resurfaced. She looked around at her peers, everyone buzzing with dreams and aspirations, unaware that they would soon find themselves drowning in the same sea of regret. It was only a matter of time before the letters began arriving, bold red ink warning of delinquency, reminders of how far behind she was sinking. That night, as she walked through the dimly lit woods, the air seemed to shift. A chilling breeze whispered through the branches, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah could have sworn she heard her father's voice, urging her to wake up. The world faded and twisted around her, her thoughts spiraling into shadows. She thought of those looming payments, the collection notices that would follow her like a ghost, the looming threat of wage garnishment. The fear gnawed at her insides, a rot spreading through her chest, as if the very loans she had taken to build her future were now clawing their way back to drag her into darkness. She stumbled across a clearing illuminated by a flickering light. There, an old dilapidated school building loomed, its windows dark like hollow eyes. A barricade of eerie memories loomed within its walls, remnants of dreams once filled with laughter and hope. Curiosity compelled her forward, and as she stepped inside, the air grew thick with dust and stale regret. The walls whispered tales of other students, their faces etched in despair, all facing the same unseen adversary: debt. In the corner, a shattered mirror reflected twisted images of herself, a macabre reminder of the woman she could become, burdened, defeated. Around her, the voices became louder, a cacophony of anxiety and despair. They echoed her deepest fears: tax refunds withheld, wages garnished, the specter of default creeping closer with every missed payment. A cold dread settled in her bones as she realized that unlike nearly every other debt, these loans had no statute of limitations. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of something in the reflection. It wasn't her face looking back at her, but the silhouette of someone drenched in shadows, smirking back with fingers beckoning her closer. The realization struck like a thunderbolt. This entity thrived on the fear of those lost in the labyrinth of debt. All around her, figures emerged from the darkness. Classmates, each paralyzed with their own burdens, their faces etched with the horrors of student loans. Sarah's heart raced, and she turned to flee, but the door slammed shut, trapping her inside. The walls echoed with haunting laughter, a symphony of despair that clawed at the edges of her sanity. As the shadows closed in, she screamed, a cry of terror swallowed by the darkness. In that moment, she understood. The loans were not just a burden, but had festered and morphed into something far more malign, a monstrous entity waiting to drag her into the depths of hopelessness, to assure that each missed payment would lead to an eternity of hauntings, a life spent shackled to despair. As the laughter morphed into anguished cries, Sarah wondered if she would ever escape this nightmare, or if the federal loans would indeed suffocate her dreams, dragging her down into darkness forever. The shadows writhed and whispered, closing in every direction, and the weight of debt was now more than just financial. It was a living force. With no escape in sight, she braced for the inevitable, sinking deeper into the murky depths of her own choices and fears, trapped and tormented in a never-ending cycle. when the shadows began to dissipate, revealing cracks in their once impenetrable facade. Sarah's breath quickened as she found herself at the center of a spiraling dance of uncertainty. The long-forgotten advice from her father suddenly rang clear in her mind. Knowledge is light, illumination in a maze of darkness. She could feel remnants of their laughter pierce through the gloom, nudging her to remember something she had known once but forgotten in panic. Practical financial education was always accessible. It had been there even during her worst nights. With the echo of each ominous whisper, she recalled the importance of making timely payments, the power of seeking help when faced with insurmountable debt, and the wisdom of understanding her options. The fractured mirror shimmered once more, and she stepped closer, asking herself questions she had avoided for too long. What if I consolidated this debt? She pondered. What if I embraced a structured repayment plan? She could reach out. There were programs designed to assist students like her. Rehab programs, the clerk's gentle guidance, and even forgiveness options had drifted past her vision, lost in the haze of despair. The darkness began to ripple backward as she realized that every day delayed was an opportunity lost. A chance to reclaim her future waxed and waned. She thought of income-driven repayment plans, reining in her fears, learning how payments could shrink based on earnings, and perhaps giving her breathing room to save and grow beyond the murky depths of her loans. No, the path wouldn't be easy, but each step taken would counter the grip of the shadows tugging at her heels. As clarity washed over her, Sarah suddenly envisioned a plan holistically, a blueprint for liberation. She could start educating herself about her loans, confronting them head-on. She discovered financial literacy resources online, workshops offered by her alumni association, and local nonprofit programs dedicated to fostering financial awareness. With every step toward understanding, Sarah felt the weight on her shoulders shift, from desperation to empowerment. The ghostly figures melted into the light, transforming into allies willing to lend their strength. She saw how building an emergency fund could cushion future expenses, and sacrificing a few luxuries could provide room to prioritize her loans. The more she learned, the more confident she became. Eventually, she found the courage to face her shadowy adversities. With her heart pounding, she stepped toward the door, which had now creaked open, the path ahead illuminated with possibilities. The laughter had vanished, and in its place emerged a chorus of hope, gently propelling her to reclaim her future. I won't let fear hold dominion over my life, she uttered aloud, each word infused with purpose. She took her first steps outside the haunted building, the cold air a sharp reminder of the battle she'd faced. Yet as she stood at the edge of the clearing, she understood this journey was not just about tackling loans, but about embracing her autonomy, reclaiming her financial identity. In that moonlit cemetery of lost dreams, Sarah turned around and faced the remnants of her struggle. They no longer loomed with menace, but rather stood as testament to her growth. She made a vow that she would share her story with others, equipping her peers with the insight she had gained, because no one should walk this path alone. In sharing knowledge, the shadows held no power, and as dawn broke, the fog lifted. Sarah emerged not just as a survivor, but as a guide, a beacon of light for those still shrouded in night. In the layers of her experience, she learned perhaps the most vital lesson of all, that mastering one's financial destiny doesn't merely happen in the quiet of our minds, but vibrates in the hearts of every soul willing to confront their fears. Lesson: student loans can feel overwhelming, but knowledge is your greatest ally. Understanding your options, creating a repayment plan, and seeking guidance can transform the dark landscape of debt into a pathway of hope and empowerment. Take action now. Your financial future is worth fighting for.